Well, today's readings really focus on the idea of what ambition really means. And after I was reading these, I was thinking of this song that I remember when I was younger from a band called Boston. They wrote a song called Peace of Mind, and I just want to read some of the lyrics for you. Now you're climbing to the top of the company ladder, and I hope it doesn't take too long. Can't you see there'll come a day when it won't matter? There'll come a day when you'll be gone. Lots of people out to make believe they're living, but they can't decide on who they should be. I understand about indecision, but I don't care if I get left behind. People are living in competition when all I want is my peace of mind. Western culture really celebrates ambition, achievement, success. Our readings today really take a different view of what it means to be successful in the world. Jesus redefines success. And we struggle with this definition, the consequences of following it. I know I always do. To really grasp the meaning of what Jesus is telling his disciples today, you need to understand the true purpose of crucifixion. We think it's about killing someone, eliminating a threat to the Roman rule, a punishment for a crime. And it is all of those things, but it's also much more. It's meant to be about humiliation. Crucifixion is about humiliating the victim at every step of the way. And that's why crucifixion was not allowed for Roman citizens. It was only used for non-Roman citizens. A victim of crucifixion is stripped of all their dignity, their humanity, and of course, any hope of a quick death. Death on the cross can take hours or it could take days, depending on the strength of the person being crucified. So Jesus, for the second time, tells his disciples of his impending passion and death. And when Jesus speaks of his death, his disciples clearly understand that he is talking about crucifixion, and they understand exactly what that means. So how do the apostles, for the second time, react to this horrifying news? Instead of hearing the bad news that leads to the path of glory and resurrection, they instead focus on the glory itself. Right before this passage that we just heard from in Mark's Gospel is the story of Jesus going up to Mount Tabor and the Transfiguration. And this is what they're really focused on. Now, if you remember, Jesus takes up 3 of his disciples to Mount Tabor to witness the Transfiguration. And he tells them not to talk about it when they come down the mountain. But you can imagine these 3 guys have seen this amazing, wonderful thing, the glorification of Jesus, and they're not going to hold it in. They're going to tell the other people, their disciples, the other apostles, because they want to brag. They're going to say, listen, Jesus took the 3 of us, not all of you guys. He took us. And guess what we saw? And so that's probably what they were all talking about, was, okay, who's going to get to sit where, and what glory are we going to get to share with Jesus, instead of hearing where that glory comes from in the crucifixion. So they ignore everything Jesus is saying and try and figure out who's going to have the position of power when Jesus' kingdom truly comes about. Another thing that's interesting about our gospel passage today is there's a contrast going on that we might not have recognized. There's a contrast between fear and faith. After witnessing the events of Jesus' life, the transfiguration, his healing, his preaching, the apostles should be growing in faith, right? They're witnessing something incredible and amazing. Jesus heals the sick. Jesus raises the dead. Jesus is transfigured before them. And yet instead of growing in faith, they are growing in fear. They are overwhelmed by Jesus' references to his suffering and death that they ignore it. They're afraid to ask the question. So they just ignore the problem. They don't ask the question. They ignore the unpleasant topic. They focus instead on what position in the kingdom they will hold when Jesus reigns. Our second reading today from the letter of St. James talks about the consequences of our ambition. And what are those consequences that James lists? Strife, conflict, war. Where ambition exists, there is disorder and evil. Where Christianity takes root, there's meant to be purity and peace. James warns us that passions will cause war between nations and individuals. James actually says, "You covet, but you do not possess. You kill and envy because you cannot attain." That really is the definition of conflict and war. All wars revolve around someone wanting or taking something that isn't necessarily theirs, or wanting to get back what they think they should have. True greatness, in Jesus' eyes, in God's eyes, and not for the last time does Jesus remind us of this, but he reminds his apostles that greatness is not in ruling and conquering. It is in service, of giving of ourselves to others, that we achieve greatness in the kingdom of God. How does one advance in Christianity? Jesus says, "If anyone wishes to be first, he shall be the last of all and the servant of all." Jesus demonstrates this constantly throughout his life, most vividly when he washes the feet of the disciples at the Last Supper. Jesus, as usual, is turning everything upside down. Success is not about wealth and power and ruling. It's about service and humility and humbleness. True success in the world is love of God and giving yourself away. If you give yourself away, you will receive many blessings. That is the definition of true success, not the success of achievement and ambition. Happiness in this world, to be lasting and not fleeting, is about giving yourself away. This is a strange message to hear because we are taught from the very beginning that success is about accumulating things for ourselves, about making ourselves and finding our happiness in the things found in this world. But without a doubt, true happiness, lasting happiness, is about giving yourself away. The more you give yourself away, the more blessings God will pour down upon you. If you just give yourself the opportunity to give yourself away in small ways at first, you'll learn that lesson, and you'll ultimately be willing to give God everything you have, and he will give you so much more in return. Notice, Jesus does and says this throughout his life. He puts himself on the line, giving himself away in every situation in which he finds himself. The more you give yourself away, the more blessings God will pour down upon you. Peace of mind does not come from economic security or having the things that we want. It comes from having a personal relationship with Jesus Christ in the service of others, in the building up of the kingdom of God.